Ohio State's mission in Husky Stadium is clear. Make sure Washington knows the Buckeyes are a different team.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Feel Good Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, the veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. During today's show, we will discuss numerous players who must play big tomorrow against Washington, as well as if the Buckeyes should have a conservative game plan for Julian Sayin. But first, Ohio State's mission in Husky Stadium is clear. Make sure Washington knows the Buckeyes are a different team. And in any given game Ohio State is playing, they're going to have a mission. Offensively, let's make sure we execute at a high level. Get to a flow early in the game, set the tone early with the offensive line, get a couple of first downs to settle down the quarterback. There's always a mission on every drive and just for the unit. But for the team collectively, as Ohio State steps into Husky Stadium tomorrow, a place that is expected to be loud and crazy and wild all game long, the Buckeyes must make sure they don't lose sight about what their goal is in the year, which is attacking a national championship. Also, Ohio State is a number one team in the country, which adds to Washington's fuel to beat Ohio State tomorrow. But Ohio State's different. They showed that in week one against Texas, knocking off the number one team in the country. They showed that in week two against Grambling, putting up a 70-burger. Oh, yeah, they also had a shutout. They showed that in week three where they just controlled the entire game, and Ohio couldn't get anything going. Ohio State's been different all season long, and while they were off, Oklahoma made noise, Miami made some noise, even Indiana beat a top 10 team. There were teams that made some noise, but none of them can make noise like Ohio State can make noise tomorrow when they go into Husky Stadium and snap a win streak that dates back to 2021. Washington's a tough place to play, not just something we talk about. A lot of teams go out there and walk away with a loss. But Ohio State's different. Think about it. The quarterback, Julian Sayin, a second-year guy, a redshirt freshman that shows up in week one and is accurate, is poised, has the complete command of the huddle and the offense, and it shows on the field. Defensively, they haven't allowed an opponent to score more than 9 points. That shows up in a very big way. Defensively, you have a new defensive coordinator where no one had a great feel about what type of defense Ohio State would run. It would be Ohio State's defense, but this year's defense looks different than what the Buckeyes have ran since Ryan Day has been there. Matt Patricia, and he has already shown and put his fingerprints all over this Buckeyes defense, which is the big reason why they are playing so well. Offensively, you get a new play caller. Brian Hartline is not only the offensive coordinator, but he's calling plays for the first time in his career. And Brian Hartline has figured some things out early. He's figured out how to put Julian Sayin in a situation where he is comfortable. He's figured out how to get the ball in his playmaker's hands over and over and over again. He might even find a way to allow the true freshman running back in Bo Jackson, which is the best running back on the team, to get into a flow early in this game. There's a lot of new faces in new places at Ohio State. And one thing remains the same. They are different. They are built different. They are a team that is hungry and eager to get back on the field. And in the hype video that Ohio State put out on Thursday, the caption or on the thumbnail of the video on the YouTube, it said be different. And that was already in my mind anyway to describe how Ohio State should play tomorrow with the hunger and the thirst to go out there and just take down Washington. But Ryan Day in that video put these words out, and it was a pregame speech that he made. And I think it's something Ryan Day can say before every single game. You're different. So make sure they know they're playing somebody different tonight. They're playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. A little bit later, he said they're playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. You know how Ryan Day gets before games, gets all hype and gets that coach juice going. Well, that same thing needs to flow through Ryan Day and these players tomorrow. to make sure Washington knows they're playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is a Washington team that has a lot of really good players. I mean, they may have a guy in Denzel Boston who could be a first-round pick in next year's draft. Jonah Coleman is one of the best running backs in the country. Demond Williams is the best quarterback Ohio State will have faced in their first 4 games this year. Also, defensively, which is kind of getting glossed over, Washington's rush defense is better than you might think. They're only giving up 62.0 rushing yards per game, which is an average of 2.4 yards a pop. While the pass defense isn't the best, and I know what the number tells me, if that's right in front of me, I know my eyeballs also tell me, and that tells me is that they're not playing the best kind of ball. Washington's pass defense, Washington's giving up defensively only 200.3 passing yards per game. So you might say via the numbers that Washington's defense is pretty good. That's great. Numbers tell part of the story. But I don't think the numbers can let anybody know how Washington's going to be able to defend Jeremiah Smith, Cardinal Tate, Brandon Ennis, Max Clare, Will Kazmarek, Bryson Rogers, maybe Marlon Graham gets out there. The numbers can't tell you that. And if Washington continues to play man-to-man defense like they have earlier this year, I don't think it's the best thing for them at all. I have already made it clear, and I'll say it again. I think Jeremiah Smith has 3 touchdowns tomorrow. And it's not just because Tacario Davis is healthy back on the field or he's a little banged up but still trying to give it a go. I think Jeremiah Smith has heard the conversations surrounding Denzel Boston all week, and even not just all week, for a couple of weeks, and maybe dating back into the offseason about how good Denzel Boston is. And when there's a guy on the other side of the field that is getting a lot of attention, that plays the same position that Jeremiah Smith plays, I have a hard time believing that he is not going to use that as fuel on top of the fuel he's already using to light his own fire when he's out there on the field. I think Jeremiah Smith goes off tomorrow. A lot of that goes into how the connection that him and Julian Sayin goes, and I think it'll be a very smooth connection, one that Sayin will see the holes in the defense and quickly and decisively take advantage of them. I also think when it comes to the rush defense, I know the number tells me in front of that's on the screen. I know my eyeballs also tell me. I think tomorrow, the 5 guys up front for Ohio State take advantage of a defensive front that has not played a team like Ohio State. Colorado State, Washington State, they had a FCS school, I believe, smacked in the middle of those 2 games. So they haven't really played it. Washington State isn't good. I know what the final score was of the Apple Cup. Washington won. Washington put up 59 points. So you're putting everybody on notice there. But you haven't played anybody even close to the caliber of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Tomorrow's game is big. Yes, we're going to talk a lot about the big 3 at Washington. But defensively, the Huskies have holes. And Ohio State is able to exploit them. And by exploiting them, I think you have to establish a run. I know you're probably still going to play 3 running backs. I don't think that's the best thing for Ohio State to do tomorrow. I think eventually you got to figure out which 2 are your best and roll with the punches and roll with how the formula is going to work, which I think is a winning formula for Ohio State. But we'll discuss that later on throughout the season because we got a lot of ball left to play. Ohio State must make sure they understand the mission tomorrow, and we all know the mission is clear, is that to make sure Washington knows that the Buckeyes are a different team. And while making sure Washington knows the Buckeyes are a different team, they must make sure they have the proper game plan for Julian Sayin, which might be conservative. Is that the right move for the young quarterback? We'll discuss that after the break. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is getting the news that Lorenzo Styles Jr. is ready to get back on the field. He went down and was knocked out of the game against the Ohio Bobcats, and he also gave up a touchdown in that game, which I know doesn't sit well with him. But what does sit well with him is him being healthy and getting ready to go back on the field because the Buckeyes are going to need his experience, his expertise, his style of play to slow down Washington tomorrow. And him getting forward and moving forward to getting back on the field is going to help Ohio State be able to hit on all cylinders when they step on the field tomorrow afternoon in Husky Stadium. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Before we go any further, I want to give a quick shout out to CBS Sports' Jenny Dell, who recently opened up her Instagram story to allow people to ask her questions. And one of the questions that was asked was about what songs or podcasts that she listens to. And she responded with, during a game week, she listens to Locked On Blank podcast. And this week, the game she is covering is Ohio State versus Washington. And it was fun seeing that story pop up that she's been tapped into Locked On Buckeyes and Locked On Huskies this week. Roman Tomashoff, the host of Locked On Huskies, sent that text to me, letting me know that Jenny Dell's tapped into our shows. I want to say thank you for tapping in and listening to the show. And anytime you want to come on the show, is an open invitation, and we can discuss a time and get you on the show just to discuss ball, what it's like covering college football, and what it's like watching Ohio State play this year. It's been fun watching Ohio State play this year because the Buckeyes are good, man. I mean, it goes without saying, but this year's team is only showing a little bit about what they can be this year, offensively and defensively. I believe you're still trying to figure out and solidify the identities of both units. But on offense, the Buckeyes showed earlier in game number one, it was Julian Sayin's first start, that they were going to have a conservative game plan and do what was needed to win. Not too little, so you lost the game, and not way too much, so you threw too much on Julian Sayin's plate. You literally were just trying to do what was needed to win the game. Well, if that same thought process continues tomorrow, that could mean that the thought is for Sayin to have a conservative game plan. And I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to be the most extensive gameplay he's going to have of the season, but I don't think you're going to see Ohio State have a game plan like they had against Texas. I think you're going to try to mix in the run and pass a little bit more, trying to be a little bit more creative with the run and allow Bo Jackson specifically to get loose early in the game to allow Julian Sayin to settle in, allow the RPO and play action pass calls to flourish in the ways that they can. And I think you're going to see a lot of those tomorrow. Because one thing you want to do with any team out there, but especially a team that runs a lot of man-to-man, is try to get their eyeballs off the man they're guarding. If you're running zone, you can do certain things as a quarterback to try to confuse the guys in coverage. But in man-to-man, you want to make sure that, well, if he has Jeremiah Smith, you do something to allow him to force him or maybe lure him into getting off his keys, not following his own fundamentals, not following the call, so that he makes one false step or three false steps. Next thing you know, Jeremiah Smith is wide open in the end zone. So I don't think the game plan is going to be conservative, but I do believe there are going to be some safeguards set in place because you are going into a hostile environment. It's wild. It is crazy. It's a place that for a lot of us that are in the Midwest, you wouldn't think a stadium out there in that part of the country would be that wild and would be that crazy, but it is. And for some people, it was an eye-opener a year ago when Ohio State went to Autzen Stadium to see how wild and loud that fan base was. Those fans were for the entire game. And I think Autzen Stadium only seats 55 or 56,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me for Husky Stadium, but my gut says the stadium seats, roughly 52,000. Going to fact check that here on the show. It's not the best podcasting, but I want to give you the accurate information in regards to the capacity for the stadium. Shout out to Wikipedia for having the info that people like myself love, the nerds that cover this sport. Oh, I'm way off, actually. Capacity for Husky Stadium is 70,000. So a lot more than people will be there than were there at the Oregon game a year ago, which adds to the noise. And then you have the awning and the covering there that is kind of trapping the noise, also shielding the fans from the rain in a place that rains a lot throughout the year. There's a lot that could pull Sayin to the left or to the right, forward or backward, have him sink down or have him get his head big because he's throwing a touchdown in a really big part of the game. So I do think there are going to be some safeguards, especially with communication and getting the calls in. Will there be a silent communication to get the calls in? how does the helmet, the coach to player communication work out? Are there times where it gets interfered with, where the connection is blocked, or it's a little it's hindered because so many people there and the connection between Heartline up in the sky and Sayin down low, you can't hear him clearly? Do they try to only work with a silent count and only use signals from the sideline to get the plays in? What do they do? How are they going to go about trying to handle the crowd? But also, with handling the crowd, maybe it's not all about the communication from Heartline to Sayin. Or maybe it's not all about getting the plays in from the sideline to the players on the field. Maybe it's about allowing Sayin to audible and to allow him to have more command of the offense. Because sometimes having command of the offense isn't all about getting the play, going out there, seeing what the defense is doing when you line up, seeing how they might shift prior to the snap of the ball, and then knowing, okay, this is how we handle what's in front of us. Sometimes it is about knowing this is a look that in practice, when we got this look, we checked to this call and it worked every time. Sometimes those are things that a quarterback needs to do. But maybe Ryan Day and Billy Fessler and Brian Hartline don't trust Sayin to make that move. But maybe they do. When it comes tomorrow, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how often Sayin may audible or how often Sayin may look out there and not look spooked and is prepared for whatever is thrown his way. But also, I'm looking forward to seeing maybe if he does throw another interception where he's thrown interceptions in back-to-back games. Maybe he gets a little rattled because of how loud it is and because it is in a place that's not the shoe. How does he respond to adversity? How does he respond to pressure? Because it's going to hit him. The pressure and adversity is going to hit him tomorrow. How he responds is going to show up in a big way, and the Buckeyes may still win if he does not respond in the proper way. But if he does, we collectively are going to feel more comfortable about Julian Sayin, the quarterback, because he went on the road in a hostile environment and walked out with his head held high, with the Buckeyes winning the game. And it's not where he fell down and flopped in big moments. No, it is where Julian Sayin rose to the occasion, showed everybody that what happened in the first two games of the year wasn't a fluke, that he does have full command of the offense, and he knows how to pick apart and slice and dice the opponent's defense. I'm excited for this game tomorrow. I mean, this is a game that I've had circled on my calendar all offseason. And the fact that it's here tomorrow, maybe 24 hours from the time you're tapped into the show, man, I'm getting chills and ready to just turn the TV on right in front of me and just say, let's fast forward to 3:30 Eastern to watch the Buckeyes and Huskies battle it out in Seattle. When they battle it out in Seattle, there are going to be numerous Buckeyes that must play big for Ohio State to win. I will unveil that list after the break. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Guys, it's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ohio State, Julian Sayin has delivered in a big way this year. The redshirt freshman quarterback stepped into the scene against Texas and did everything he needed to do to take down the Longhorns. And then against Grambling, and then against Ohio, he has showed everybody that he has what it takes to get better week after week after week. When the pressure was on, Julian Sayin came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Julian Sayin is on a streak. And just like Julian Sayin delivered for Ohio State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with zero sugar and zero crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I always reach for cherry because it's refreshing and gives me that quick lift before a busy day. Guys, I've also been eyeing peach mango too. It sounds like the perfect one to try next. Honestly, I love how fast it kicks in, and it's sugar free, so I don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love and be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Thank you all for tapping and locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. Tomorrow's showdown in Seattle is big for Ohio State. It's the Big Ten opener. It's their first road game. It's in a very hostile environment where Ohio State has an opportunity to snap a very long winning streak, a home winning streak for Washington that dates back to 2021. And for Ohio State to make sure they do everything they can to snap said winning streak, the Buckeyes must get some key performances from certain players. And the first one on my list is Arvel Reese, a guy that has been a monster this year. 6'4", about 240 pounds, potentially the same height and weight as Sonny Styles, but he moves different. He looks a little bit quicker, a little bit better in space. And Sonny Styles is really good in space. Don't get me wrong, but Arvel Reese is a better blitzer. He could be the leading tackler for Ohio State this year. Arvel Reese is phenomenal. And I'm not looking for Arvel Reese to be the one that's looking at Jonah Coleman. You know, the old school Ray Lewis versus Eddie George matchups when the Ravens and Titans played each other. You knew that Eddie George and Ray Lewis were eyeing each other every play, trying to take Ray Lewis, trying to take him down, Eddie George trying to run him over, or maybe elude him because it's hard to run Ray Lewis over. But it's not the kind of matchup. I am looking for Arvel Reese to be one of the players that spies DeMond Williams, because that's where things start. Jonah Coleman can gas you, and Jonah Coleman can get you. He's a really good running back. Don't get me wrong. But when the quarterback has complete control of the offense, and when the quarterback is able to get comfortable back there in the pocket, it's going to be a nightmare for Ohio State. But if one of the guys that's spying DeMond Williams is also a guy that you really going to have a hard time figuring out where he's going to be post-snap, that is going to confuse the opposing quarterback and potentially Jed Fish and allow Washington's offense to not be as prolific as it's been this year. So to me, Arvel Reese is a guy. He has to go out there, play the game that he always plays, but also when it's time to spy, do that very well. Another guy is Caden Curry. When Ohio State entered the year, I was under the impression Ohio State would be playing a lot of 4-2-5 defense, potentially a 3-3-5 look, but it would just be converting a defensive end to an outside backer. So it would still be a 4-2-5 personnel, a 4-2-5 look. Ohio State's rolled out there a lot this year with a three-man front, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. It's created a lot of headaches, and I think the same thing is going to happen tomorrow, where you can even see Ohio State roll out there, and they have two guys with their hand in the dirt, or maybe everybody is standing up, and you have no idea what's going to happen. Because that's possible, because Ohio State can roll out there with the defensive front, where you have Caden Curry at the nose, Bo Atkinson at one defensive end spot, C.J. Hicks at the other, and as an opposing offense, you're trying to figure out, okay, these guys are shifty. These guys can move. These guys are a little bit quicker than the average defensive lineman. So how do we overcome this obstacle? And I think that'd be an advantage for Ohio State. Even with a lighter defensive front, I think they'll create so many headaches for Washington because they have no idea what to do. But for me with Caden Curry, it's about controlling the middle, not allowing their center to get comfortable, not allowing it to be a predictable thing about where Caden Curry is going to be. I actually went back and looked at my phone because I went to quite a few Caden Curry games when he was in high school. And one of the most memorable ones was, I believe, his senior year. It was number 1 versus number 2 in the state. And he was on, I believe, the number 1 team in Center Grove. They were home this day. And towards the end of the game, I believe it's a 1-score game, somebody on Center Grove needed to make a play. Caden Curry played a lot of nose tackle that year. Not something you would think from a guy that's 250 pounds. But he played a lot of nose tackle. He put a spin move on the center on this particular play, took down Danny O'Neal, who's now Wisconsin's backup quarterback. And I'm like, oh, wow. I went back and looked at that, saw the quickness, saw the burst, saw the quick takedown, and I'm thinking, Caden Curry's doing that same thing. He may have the spin move, but he's wreaking havoc in the middle of a defensive line in college at Ohio State at 260 pounds. And tomorrow against Washington, let's remember one thing. Washington hasn't played anybody at all. Yeah, I mean, they got the Apple Cup, and if you could say in that rivalry, throw the records out the window, and that's true for any rivalry game. So I'm not going to try to diminish the fact that Washington State played Washington, but let's keep it real. Washington State isn't Ohio State. Their defensive line isn't as good as Ohio State's. And a guy that came to the year that people knew he could play big, but they were wondering how would he play when he is getting extended playing time. We're finding that he is just fine being on the field for 50 to 60 to 70 snaps. He is just fine. His motor does not go down. If anything, it gets cranked up the longer he is on the field. And I'm looking forward to Caden Curry tomorrow being a guy that's in the middle. Yeah, he's going to make some noise on the edge too, don't get me wrong. But a guy in the middle is going to make a lot of noise this year. Last but not least, I got 5 guys for you. They play one position or one unit. You might know where I'm going. The offensive lineman. Well, there's truly 6 because Ohio State plays 6 offensive linemen, only plays 5 at one time. Ethan Onyanwa, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinchman, Tegra Shabola, Phillip Daniels, and then also Austin Servold. I have no idea how I put the captain last, but here we are. This unit tomorrow is going to be up to the task of trying to control a defensive front that is going to enter the game pretty confident. Like I mentioned, they only give up 62.0 yards, rushing yards per game. That's really good. And I don't care if you're playing 3 cupcakes. It doesn't matter to me. If you only give up 62 rushing yards per game, you're doing something right. Because even in a game against a cupcake or a team that you should blow out, in the latter part of the game, when you're playing prevent defense and some of your backups are in, you might find a way for them. You might find at the end of the game, well, they ran for 125 yards or 140 yards. You may get that in back-to-back weeks, and you're giving up 118.2 rushing yards per game. But only giving up 62.0 speaks volumes about what this defensive front might be down the road. But I think for Ohio State, knowing the importance of establishing the run and setting the tone with the guys up front to allow Sayin's job to be easier and allow for the running backs' jobs to be easier, I believe these guys are up to the task of going out west and dominating up front. And I'm looking for all 6 of them. You can even add in the tight ends in a Will Kazmarek, a Max Clare, a Jelani Thurman, a Bennett Christian, a Nate Roberts. I mean, you could add all 5 of those guys in because it could be a scenario where all 5 of them play because Ohio State has a lot of tight ends that can play very well. And I think tomorrow you're going to see not so much Sayin slinging the ball around early. I think you're going to see a better mix of run and pass early in the game, especially on their first drive, the script of 12 to 15 plays. I think you're going to see that tone set early to allow Sayin to get the RPO game going and allow the play action game to work. And you can see a look and you can just kind of get a bounce and a feel. And with Sayin, you can tell when he's feeling right with the play action pass, he might throw it deep to any of his receivers or tight ends for a touchdown. But it all starts early in the game. You set that tone early. You bring the lumber. You're the more physical team. And you're going to see Ohio State's offense flourish. I still have Ohio State winning this game. I have not changed my score prediction for when it came up in the special segment when I was on Locked on College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. Romo Tomashoff joined us there as well. He is the host of Locked on Huskies. My score prediction for tomorrow's game, Ohio State 34, Washington 17. Washington is good. Ohio State is better. I do think tomorrow, Jeremiah Smith, 3 touchdowns. I'm not changing that. I think Bo Jackson is your number 1 running back, and I wouldn't be shocked if he eclipses the 100-yard mark once again. Tomorrow's game is Ohio State's chance to get back on the field in the Big Ten opener in a very hostile environment and to remind everybody in college football that the Ohio State Buckeyes are different. They're built different. They are making noise all season, and their ability to make noise in the right way is not going to stop tomorrow afternoon in Seattle, Washington. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked on College Football, because my guy Spencer McLaughlin is the man to help you get ready for a busy and wild college football Saturday and a recap a busy and wild college football Saturday as well. You can tap in and Locked on College Football and Locked on Buckeyes right there on the YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform or jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes right here on a Friday. We'll see you tomorrow after the game.